2 are smaller and 3 are larger. What else? I think that's about it for right now on the turtles. I'm kind of done with the turtles for a little bit. I had a couple, well, actually I had 3 of the Crochet Vision Sloan, the seahorses that I needed to finish, so I finished those up last night. The pattern for the market bag that I am making will be down in the description. I linked the video. It's a little bit older video, but I got the idea from Kelsey of Passionate Kelsey, and she shared that particular video, and that's what I decided to follow. So this yarn is the Bernat Handicrafter. It's an old colorway called Moon Dance, and it sure is working up really nice. So I think it'll make a good bag. I just started the bag, and these ones usually take me about 3 hours to complete, which Passionate Kelsey on one of her videos mentioned that that's about how long it takes her to do hers. Of course, when I'm trying to film or trying to stream, it takes me a little bit longer. However, I still like working on my stuff. This is a sloth that I created this week, and this is one of Crochet Vision's patterns. It's Henry the horse, and I had him made. I just couldn't figure out his hair for a while, so I finally figured out his hair. And then, oh, I already tossed it. I was making sea turtles. I made 7 of them this week, so I am turtled out. This is a axolotl, and it's a Crochet by Jenna pattern, and that was pretty easy. I was almost out of the green yarn, and it was a good way to use up that green yarn. Welcome and howdy. How are y'all doing? Don't know where you guys are at, but it's snowing here. But it's that light snow that really doesn't amount to a whole lot, just makes everything real slick outside. The dogs are keeping watch over me today. They're on the couch watching me. Well, actually, they're watching the TV because I have myself, my channel up on the TV. So, man, the wind was blowing pretty hard this morning, but that's not abnormal. Where we live in Wyoming, we get quite a bit of that kind of turbulence. The pine tree outside my window was really moving this morning. It's over 100 years old, and it's more than 100 feet tall. It's one of the biggest ones in town, but it sure is messy. You get a lot of pine sap and needles and stuff off of it. But I guess if I was that old, I'd probably be dropping stuff everywhere too. So I don't know if you guys have had time to check your, see if your local Joann's is going to stay open. They're closing a lot of stores. I figured my store would be on the list, and it was. Our store is a really teeny tiny store in the mall, and although they service a large area here in Wyoming, it's just not enough to keep the store open. I mean, you have to remember our entire state population is smaller than the population of Denver, the city. So there's more antelope out here than there are people. And it's hard to keep businesses open when there's, you know, even though people are utilizing them, it's not like in a big city. I did do some Joann's buying a while back on some of their sales, but I'm not going to do any more. I have quite a bit of stuff to still work through on my yarn that I've had forever and a day. But I have been working through it pretty well. I'm keeping all my yarn labels for this month so that I can show kind of how much I've gone through. I've already broken into my third box of stuffing, and I'm going through about a box every 3 weeks or so. And next time I order the stuffing, I think I'm going to get it off of Walmart. It looks like it might be just a titch cheaper. That way I can get a larger quantity. I want to get the 25-pound box because that will last me quite a while. What are you working on today? I just need a palette cleanser, which is why I'm working on the market bag today. What else? Our capital city, which is where I live, is so tiny. There's like 70,000 people here, and we have an Air Force base that's included in that. And so we're even though we're the capital city, we're really tiny. I think we're the only state in all 50 states that still is losing population rather than really growing. Although we do have quite a few people moving here from other states. I don't know if they're moving here for the way the taxes are, or because they just don't want to deal with people, because there's just not a lot of people around, which means, you know, if you have neighbors, you really do know your neighbors. My family has lived in this neighborhood since 1975. Now, I'm not that old, but we know everybody on the block. We all exchange telephone numbers and our friends on Facebook, you know, and all that kind of good stuff. And we share information back and forth. And that, you know, that's kind of the nice thing about living in a smaller community, is that not everybody knows everybody, but it's kind of like 6 degrees of separation. You meet somebody and they may not know you, but most likely they know somebody that you're either related to or that you know pretty well. Like one time I was working in a gas station up in Casper, and a sheriff's deputy came in, and he and I got to talking, and it turned out that he knew my great aunt and uncle down in Douglas, which Douglas isn't that far from Casper. And he had known them for quite a while. But it was just kind of funny that came up in the conversation with someone that I had never met before. But that's kind of how Wyoming is. we say Wyoming, the state, is a small town, because it kind of acts like it is. I think the only bad part about that is that then it's hard for people to make changes. And so we kind of get stuck in doing the same thing the same way all the time, which I think kind of happened to Cheyenne Frontier Days, although they're still supposed to be the largest outdoor rodeo. It's really become very good old boys kind of club, and it's very commercialized. They try to keep everybody up at the fairgrounds rather than, you know, letting people shop the town. They basically want you to be up at the fairgrounds and stay at the fairgrounds. So they, you know, they offer all kinds of stuff to try and keep people busy and get people to spend money. And realistically, you can do a lot of stuff for Frontier Days that does not include the fairgrounds, and that is just free, like the parades and the pancake breakfasts, and then the air show. The Thunderbirds come in almost every year and put on a air show over Cheyenne, which is really nice. You can always tell when they're coming in because they make the house rattle, but we live very close to the airport. And by very close, I mean we're like 8 blocks away. Well, 8 blocks away from the old terminal. They made a new terminal, but I always forget about that because to me, the old terminal is, you know, where everything is at. Although now I think the local police and sheriffs and whatnot use that to practice different scenarios so that they can be ready for anything that comes our way. We are pretty lucky where we're at. We have seen a rise in crime and stuff, but it's not as bad as it could be. And, you know, I really enjoy living here because it's comforting to me to be around people that I know and to be in a small community. And, you know, yes, there's some crime, but there's not a lot of crime right now. It could always be a lot worse. Basically, there's a lot of like property crime, but it's nonviolent, which, you know, I know if you have somebody break into your home, that's a violation of your personal space, and I'm sure that would set me off big time. But we're lucky that most of the time that stuff is nonviolent. They're not there to hurt people. And it sounds like they're getting ready to try the guy that we had what we called the coin shop murders. And it happened during Frontier Days where the owner of the coin shop was murdered. And I think his friend was murdered too. Finally, the police were able to figure out who had done it, with the help of the FBI. And I think they might have used genetic genealogy, but maybe not. But they figured out who it was, and the guy that did it was the guy that reported it. So they went, I think, out to California to get him and bring him back. You know, and I don't know about you guys, but I like to watch true crime. I I like Vinnie Politan. He's pretty funny. But he can also be serious, you know, and with the Idaho murders, I feel so bad for those families. It's, you know, it's already been several years, and they don't really have closure over what happened to their kids, to their family members. And that just has to be so awful for them to have to go through that over and over and over again, not really knowing. And, you know, I really hope and think that, you know, the police got the right guy, but I really hope that they can prove it in court as well, because if they can't, you know, that leaves the families hanging about, you know, who actually did the crime and why they did the crime. I mean, why would someone just break into a house and kill people? Like, that just doesn't make any sense to me anyways. You know, why would you want to hurt anybody? And I realize that there's bad people out there that do stupid stuff and crazy stuff, but I really struggle to understand why someone would hurt somebody else, because not only are you, you know, ruining or killing them and ruining their families and friends' lives, but you're ruining your own life too. And I couldn't see hurt. You know, I can get mad at people, but I just couldn't see myself actually like hurting somebody, because that just seems so foreign to me. It just really seems so foreign to me. But I do like true crime and stuff, especially when they can, you know, you get to see the whole scenario, like from start to finish, from the crime all the way through the court process until the person is convicted. And then sometimes even after the person is convicted, they'll go in and do like interviews. And I find that stuff interesting, especially because you already know who the perpetrator is, and you know that the perpetrator is behind bars. And so you don't have to worry about that person hurting anybody else. The unsolved ones are the really scary ones, because it's like, who could have done that? And why would they do that? We have a murder that's still gone unsolved. It happened when I was in high school, and I vividly remember this. This young man with his child in the back seat was shot out on South Greeley, and he died. And it's never been solved. And it's been, I think, close to 25 years, and it's never been solved. And I feel so bad for that family, because that must be horrible to not know who took your loved one or why. I mean, it seems just so senseless to me. But you know, things happen. Like, we all know things that happen, but I just can't see hurting another person. It doesn't make sense to me. But I really find like genetic genealogy and stuff really fascinating, where they're able to take a little bit of DNA and then find like distant relatives, and then work backwards to who the perpetrator could be. That stuff is really fascinating, like how they caught the Golden State Killer. That was just that was so interesting, because I think like some of those crimes were, I think, like 50 or 60 years old, and to see those crimes solved is awesome. You know, I know it doesn't actually change anything for the families or for the relatives. They've still lost their loved one. But I hope knowing who did it and why they did it, gives the families like a sense of maybe not closure, but finality, that, the pain's going to carry on, but that the person that did this can't do it ever again. I guess that's kind of a morbid subject to talk about, but yeah. What else? The sloth behind me is a new to me pattern, and I thought maybe I could try and make it into a lovey because it's supposed to be completely stuffed. And I thought I'd try and make it into a lovey, and it sits really nice, but it's not a good pattern for a lovey. So I'm going to look for another pattern for a lovey. Sloths are really popular in my area, and so I want to have several of them for this summer for when I sell. And I'm really excited. My mom is going to be making painted safety eyes for me, for all my critters. As you see, most of them don't have eyes. I've gotten better about weaving in my yarn tails and everything when I'm working on something. So now my problem is eyes. I've ordered some felt eyes that I'm going to put on most of these guys. I'm going to do the way that Crochet Vision does it. She uses the Gorilla Glue hot glue, and so that's what I'm going to do to make sure that they stay on. But I was really excited to try the sloth pattern and the axolotl pattern. They're new to me patterns. And I was scrolling Instagram last night looking for different free patterns, because there's one that's supposed to be free, but I'll be darned, I can't figure out who has that pattern. I don't think it's free anymore. But I'm going to keep listening and watching, because it's a different turtle pattern, and I'd like to try that. The turtle patterns that I did turtle pattern that I used from Crochet by Jenna worked up really well. And once I got the hang of it, everything came together really easily. But it was not my favorite process. I am definitely not a process creator. I am definitely a product creator. I get a high off of making things. Well, not really a high, but, I get excited about finishing stuff. I really am not in it for just the process. Like, some people really enjoy just the process of following a pattern and creating something from that pattern. They enjoy the stitches, sometimes they really drill down on that stuff. And I'm one of those people that I love to crochet and I really like to knit, but I am definitely someone that's more about the product than about the process. And I think my mom is more about the process than about the product. She did finally finish her Tequila Sunrise cardigan, but it's downstairs blocking. And now she's started a crochet ribbed hat. And the pattern that she was trying to follow off of YouTube told her that she's supposed to crochet for so many rows. So she did that. Well, they didn't tell her how how many inches that she should have after so many rows. And so she did the rows, and then she looked at it, and it was too small. And so I told her to work the rows until she had 19 inches and then try it on. My mom has a fairly small head. I have a pretty big head, but my mom has a fairly small head. And so I think 19 inches would probably be best for her. And then last night I was just kind of messing around, and I found a pattern on a blog for a sweater. And it dawned on me after I had created the sweater that it was probably written in UK terms. It's supposed to be like a tiny like keychain size, but like this is not a keychain. I don't know what I'm going to do with it just yet. But it's really not like keychain size. But I was thinking maybe tack down the arms and maybe put like a flower, have it holding like a flower or something. Just an idea. And then I was messing around last night, and I decided to make a cowl out of, this was Bernat blanket, tiny or something like that. And I didn't even have a full skein, and so I just was seeing, you know, what I could get out of it. And then since I made myself a something for myself, I made something for Humphreys so that we can match. Not that he likes it, but, you know, he'll wear it for me if I ask, but he really would rather not. He's such an expressive little dog. I definitely know when it's time to go to bed because he hems and haws at me. We know when it's time for him to eat because he snorts at us. He tells better time than the clock that's up on the wall. He knows what time it is for him to eat. He knows what time it is for his snacks. He knows when it's time for mom to go to bed. He knows when it's time for me to go to bed. Like, he keeps us on schedule. And little Miss Bella always wants to come out and see what we're doing because she's always worried that she's missing out on something when she's in bed with mom and Humphreys and I are out in the living room. And Humphreys gets put out if anything gets moved, like if his bed gets moved or we move the furniture around. Oh, he gets so put out with us. It just ruins his whole week, and he lets us know. And there may be some barking here later on. Mom is out of the house, and I would expect her to be home anytime now. And so the dogs may bark when she comes in, but they also may not. They've been really good lately about not barking when mom comes in the house. They still bark when I come in the house, but they don't bark when mom comes in the house. So, but they're good little dogs. Humphreys is a not-so-miniature dachshund, and Bella is a cross between a dachshund and a Chihuahua. And she is 8 years old, and Humphreys is 6. And Humphreys is definitely my buddy because we go nights together every night. And, you know, when I'm out here working at nighttime on stuff, he stays out here with me. He's my good little buddy. So I'm trying to come up with a good idea for what I should do for a video for Wednesday. I don't think I really want to do a video like highlighting all the plushies that I've made this past week, because there's a lot of them. And I don't want people to feel like they, I don't want people to feel bad because maybe they don't crochet at the same speed as me. Because there's a lot of people that crochet faster than me, and there's people that don't crochet as fast as me. And then there's other people that crochet about as fast as I do. And, you know, realistically, it doesn't really matter as long as you're having fun, or you're getting what you want out of it. I'm using my Volare pillow. I know you can't really see it where it's at, but I've been using I really enjoy using my Volare pillow. It's really helpful for my overall joint health, because I do spend a lot of time crocheting and knitting. And so this helps so that I don't have, you know, sore wrists and sore arms, or, you know, painful shoulders or a painful neck. And when I'm not like watching other crocheters or knitters on YouTube, and I'm not watching true crime, I've been watching the bass singers, like Avi he used to be in Pentatonics, and then Jeff, who's in Voice Play. There's a few others that I've been watching and listening to, and I really enjoy listening to the bass and whatnot, notes that they come up with to make like a cappella songs, especially when it's just one person singing, but they can sing different multiple roles to kind of make that music more full and more vibrant. And I really enjoy just listening to music. Sometimes we just throw on some music and I crochet to music, or I knit to music, or what else do I do? That's about the extent of my hobbies, is crochet, knitting, and hanging with the dogs. And, you know, having stimulation from some kind of audio stimulation, whether it's an audiobook or it's music or it's something on YouTube. I almost always have something going. So yeah. It seems like there's a lot of people that are interested in different types of crafts. Rather, well, I shouldn't say crafts. Really, to me, it's art. Whether you're talking drawing or painting, or creating with clay or wire, or creating jewelry, or crocheting, knitting, weaving, tatting, embroidery, cross stitch. It seems like those types of arts are kind of having a comeback, which I think is awesome, because I think it's time that we start looking at stuff like that as art, because you're creating something. You're not just it seems like we have such a limited idea of what art really is. And to me, there's more to it than, you know, just singing or acting or, you know, creating movies or reels, or, you know, there's so much more to it. And I love scrolling Instagram, but I try not to do it, because if I start, then I doom scroll for like an hour, and then I never get that hour back. So I kind of try to stay off of, I hate to say this, I get on social media to post, and then I get off social media, so that I have the brain space and the time to do what I want to do. Okay, water break. If you haven't taken your meds, take your meds, drink your water, and make sure that if you haven't eaten, that you eat. Make sure that you take care of yourself, because no one else is going to do it for you. It's always nice and quiet on Saturdays around here, mainly because Mom knows that I do my lives on Saturdays. So she often leaves the house or, you know, tries to do something else, so she doesn't bother me during my lives. And I always tell her she's not a bother, and that she doesn't have to leave or go do other stuff, that she can stay. And she can talk to me, like, it's not a big deal. To me, anyways. But to her, it's a really big deal. Ooh, I've been watching Doss Farms. I think it's Doss Farms and Doss Farms Outdoors. And then they have like a clip channel. And it's I don't know if you'd call them homesteading or ranching, or quite what you would call them. They have, I think, like 15 head of cattle right now. They have longhorns, and then they have a Highland cross. Oh, she's pretty, and she's very nice, and she's very trusting, but she's also one of the cows that won't let the other cows push her around. And then there's her latest calf is blue. They call him blue because he has blue eyes, which shows that his mom isn't full Highland, but they think that she's crossed, I can't remember what it's called, crossed with another type of cow that can have blue eyes, and that's probably why Blue, the little male calf, has blue eyes. But oh, he's cute and fluffy. They have several cattle right now. Well, young, I guess you'd call them calves. I mean, they're older calves because they've been separated from their mothers because they've been weaned, but they're not really adults yet. And they have a couple in there that are very fluffy. And they had to wean one of the cows early. No, they weaned her late. But they decided that they needed to wean her because her mom was not doing well, and she was starting to go downhill and was losing a lot of weight. So they weaned her, and her mom very quickly kind of turned a corner and started getting better. And I don't know why, but that particular channel is not unusual. There's several content creators out there that, you know, they have their hobby farm or their I don't even know what you would really call it, but they have their situation with animals, and they video those animals and talk about the animals and show like feeding the animals and doing all of that. But for whatever reason, this DOS channel has caught my attention, and I really do enjoy watching it. The DOS family has several channels, because the ones I watch are run by Chad, and he's one of the sons. I mean, he's an adult son, because he's like a year younger than me. But he's got two brothers, and I think both of them have a channel. Each one of them have, one brother I think has two channels. The other brother I think has one channel. And then his dad, Grandpa DOS, has a channel as well. And it's just interesting to see an entire family. They each have their own kind of unique, I don't know if you'd say style or what about their videos. I think their personalities come through. I think that's really what it is. I'm hoping that the weather gives us a break here soon so I can go see my Aunt Susan. It's not that she lives that far away, but with the weather being as yucky as it's been lately, I don't want to be on the interstate. And it's not like I'd be the one that would have to drive, because I don't drive anymore, but either way, Mom and I don't want to be out there in the cold and the ice and the snow. Mom was watching something about neuromuscular dentistry this morning, and that was kind of interesting, talking about the different like muscles and stuff, and how what's going on in your mouth can affect the rest of your body. Because that would be, I don't know. I think it would be interesting to try, like if you had the disposable income, which I don't right now, but if you did, that would be interesting to see if that made any difference on like chronic pain or any other chronic conditions. Knock on wood, you know, a lot of my pain has been under control, very well under control, to the point where I don't have to take ibuprofen and Tylenol all the time, which is good because my liver's shot, and has been for quite a while. And, you know, I don't think enough people understand how hard it is for someone that like needs a liver to get a portion of a liver. It's extremely difficult. And so oftentimes the transplant teams and stuff tell you to ask your families, ask your friends, because they're more likely to be willing to do that. And my mom was like, oh, well, I can give you part of my liver. And it's like, no, because the chronic conditions that caused the cirrhosis in my liver won't go away just by getting, a portion of somebody else's liver. The processes that created the cirrhosis in the first place haven't gone anywhere. They won't go anywhere because it's part of other chronic conditions. And so I don't want to get a portion of somebody's liver, which is life-giving. I don't want to do that because my body's just going to fuck it up. Oops, excuse me. My body is going to mess it up. Because those processes are still there. They're never going away. And I kind of feel like it would be better to let someone who is young and healthier to some extent, or someone, that has, you never know what somebody else is going to be able to do. Maybe they'll cure cancer, or they'll find a way to, I don't know, grow, lenses for eyes in water or something. I don't know. There's so many technological and medical advancements, and you never know who's going to be the person that comes up with the next big thing. And I would rather let somebody else who maybe is the person that will come up with the next thing, or maybe they're raising the person that's going to come up with the next thing, or maybe they're going to teach the person that's going to come up with the next thing. I'd rather let them have the liver and be able to go on and do what their purpose is. I don't have kids. I got a dog and a mom. So I don't have to worry about leaving behind children or a spouse. And, I wouldn't want to do that to knowing what I know now, with all of the genetic stuff that we know is going on now. I would not want to have kids because there's a high likelihood that I would pass my conditions on to children. And that would be passing my pain and things that I deal with or have dealt with onto the next generation. And I just wouldn't want to do that. And, once I found out how sick I was with chronic stuff, I decided that it was better not to date. Because how can you, start a relationship with somebody when you know that you're probably not going to live past like 50, and you're, in your 30s, and you're not going to have kids, because by that point I definitely knew. And so it was like, I wouldn't want to hurt somebody like that. Because I saw what my aunt went through when she lost the husband that really was, I'm going to say her soulmate. Not that she doesn't love the husband that she has now, but he's not Larry. Larry was a heck of a guy. He was very special. He built the underground home that my aunt lives in. And, he just was extremely handy. He used to work on cars. He had his own detailing business. And then he and Aunt Susie decided to kind of travel the United States for a while, which they did do. And then they moved out to Kimball, because they used to live in Cheyenne, but then they moved out to Kimball. And Kimball is in a completely different state. It's not that far over the state line, but it's a little more than an hour away from us, which I was fine with when she was with Larry. But after Larry died and, you know, all the stuff she went through, I worry about her. Even with the new husband that she has, I still worry about her. And then, of course, I worry about my cousins and their kids. I worry about the young ones that are, you know, still in school. You know, how are they, you know, if the Department of Education really goes away, how do we educate kids I hate to say this, but technology is not going to stop. And if we do not have children that are learning, you know, maths and sciences and whatnot, we're going to fall behind. You know, and we probably already are as a country. But I think that every child deserves a free and fair education in our country. And I think taking away the Department of Education is an awful idea. It's not perfect. Like, we'll be honest, like, Department of Education is not perfect, but it's better than nothing. And, you know, there's so much chaos going on right now that it would be nice to be able to count on, you know, still having the Department of Education, still being able to have, you know, our country researching medications and different things. I got kind of angry because, I shouldn't say angry, there's a medication that could help treat people that have liver cirrhosis, and it was in trials. Guess what got stopped? That medicine probably won't help me, but it could help other people. It could help a lot of other people, because you can get liver cirrhosis without drinking. And I think that being able to successfully treat it is important, especially with the fact that, you know, it's so hard to get a liver. You know, for anybody that needs a liver, it's very, very difficult. I think that it's, you know, about as difficult as getting a lung. But it's not just difficult in our country, it's difficult across the world. Just like it's hard to find, you know, a good hepatologist in the United States, it can be difficult to find a good hepatologist in other countries, because it's not a new specialty, but it's changing so fast that I think it's hard to find people that are up on the latest thing. And so having our government stop the trials on the medications that could treat diseases that are killing people, like, how does that make sense? It doesn't make sense to me, but I'm not in charge of the government. So this is how far I've gotten on the market bag. I had just got finished this part and had just started the chaining when we started about an hour ago. These bags usually take me about 3 hours to complete. I'm using the Bernat Handicrafter. I'm using an old colorway though. I'm using Moon Dance. and I got this on clearance, but I don't remember when. It would have been before we moved over here, so it would have been before 2000. And I'm sure that I had it for a couple of years before that, so I probably got it in like 16, or maybe even earlier than that. But I got it off of the Yarnspirations website. I did link that in the description down below. I also figured out how to link the video of how to do these market bags down below. It's not my pattern, and I'm sorry, I forget the lady's name whose pattern it is, but the video is really easy to follow. And they don't work up as quick as I would like them to, but they do work up pretty quick. Especially since I'm using a 5mm hook. No, I'm using a 5.5. And I think she recommends like a 4.5 or a 5, but I'm using a 5.5. And I just like how I don't have to add extra stitches, but it comes out a little bit larger. I've made quite a few of these market bags. I have a finished box over there, but it's over by the dining room table, and I'm in the living room, so it's a bit far to reach. And then, of course, I have 2 tubs behind me where I toss my plushies because they need eyes or they need faces or whatever I got to put on them. I just add them to that box, and then I will work on that at a later date. Kind of like how I used to hate weaving in my ends, and I would procrastinate on that. I think I'm procrastinating on the eyes. But I'll work on that one day. Maybe when it's a little bit better sunshine, because of course it's awful dark in here in the house right now, but it's really overcast outside. It looks like it stopped snowing, but I think the wind is still going. So Bella is over here keeping an eye on me. Humphreys has gone back to sleep, but Bella, man, she's on it. She's been watching me on TV because I have, even though I'm streaming here, I pull it up on the TV to make sure that people can, like hear me and see me. And so then I just leave it muted as I do my live. And so the dogs like to watch me on TV. They also like to watch themselves on TV when they get to be on TV. They think that's pretty neat. Bella used to not watch the TV, but Humphreys has taught her how to watch the TV. He's very, very, very aware of what's going on around us. He's been aware for a long time. Even as a little teeny tiny puppy, he was aware of the TV, and he was aware of sounds outside, and he's a good little guard dog. Problem is once he starts barking, she starts barking, and then he won't stop barking because she's barking. And so we have to get her to stop barking to get him to calm down. I'm still working through my older Bernat yarns every other day or so, or at least twice a week. I go downstairs and pull up some more yarn. We had an entire cabinet chock full of Bernat blanket. And so I've been working my way through that. I also had a massive box of cotton that I've been working my way through. Karen cakes. And then I had another box that was just full of like the Bernat Handicrafter, and then I think it's the Peaches and Cream cone. I have a lot of those cones. And I just have been slowly working my way through all of my yarn, which has been a goal of mine, and I am doing a pretty good job of it. So, and that was something that I've been wanting to work on for a while. And realistically, making plushies, the Bernat yarn, for me, works up really well. And I like it because I'm, not only using this yarn that I've had for a long time, but I'm making things that I like out of it. Which, the Bernat blanket really is not meant to be, made into clothes. I mean, you can, but it makes it really, really heavy and difficult to wash. Just like if you take the Bernat blanket and you actually make a blanket out of it, it makes it so heavy and hard to wash. So it's, not something that I would recommend. I would say, like, get yourself a good cotton or cotton blend if you're going to make clothing, because I love to make clothes. And cotton blends, for me, have worked out the best. I've used Karen cotton cakes, and then I've used some, I can't remember what it was called, that I got from Hobie. I've also used, I love this cotton from Hobby Lobby, but it just doesn't work up as well. It fades faster. Like the first time you wash it, it fades. Second time you wash it, it fades. It just doesn't hold the color as well. Plus, when you have something that's cotton and acrylic, it's really easy to wash and dry. It doesn't get wrinkled, which I like, because I don't like wrinkly clothes. And of course, I'm wearing my sweatshirt, even though it's like 71 in here, but I'm still chilly. Couldn't be that I still have a wet head, although it's drying. I keep my Stanwood ball winder. You can't see it, but I have it right over here to the right. I've been keeping that out and keeping it on my table because when I get into a skein, I don't like how they deflate. And I don't know what to do with deflated balls other than to just cake them up. I like them when they're caked up, and I will use them faster if they're caked up. If it's just a ball of yarn that's kind of all messy, I don't typically grab for that first because I know there's going to be tangles that I have to work out, and that's not my favorite thing. I can do it, and I do it, but it's not my, I'd rather just grab yarn that I know is not tangled or shouldn't be tangled. I was really happy with the way that some of the things that I made came out, like the axolotl, and of course the seahorses. I have that pattern almost memorized. I should, after all the ones that I've made. That's just a quick and easy pattern to go back to, especially when I don't have a lot of that particular color left. Sometimes I'll do like 2 or 3 colors mixed together. And then, of course, you always have to put on the frill. And I do not know why, because the frill doesn't take very long, but that is the part that, like, I procrastinate on those, because I make the body, you know, and stuff it and do all that kind of stuff, but then to surface crochet on the frill, I procrastinate on. So last night I I crocheted on 3 frills because I had 3 right here that needed them, which of course that's not my favorite thing, but I got it done. And that's kind of been my thing, is I feel better when I have, you know, all of the crocheting done. And so that's what I've been really working on, is if I have a project that's not finished crochet wise, then I want to finish it, which is why I now have 7 sea turtles that I finished this week, along with I think I actually finished 5 seahorses this week. I made some frogs because I had some leftover yarn. I made the axolotl. What else have I made? I'm just trying to find small patterns so that when I have a small amount of yarn, that I have something to use it on. I don't like yarn going to waste. And so, like, for me, my yarn scraps are like that long. They're not very long at all, because I save the long ones and I use them. I saw this lady, the mompreneur, gosh, I can't remember what her name is, but she had like a big bag of, actually she had more than one, but a big bag of scraps. And looking at that, it's like, oh Lord, I don't ever want my yarn to look like that. Nor do I ever want to have that much left over. I like batch making things when I can, because then I get to use up all that yarn, rather than just making one thing here and one thing there. Although sometimes I do that too, but I really like using up my yarn so that it's completely gone and I don't have to think about that color anymore. I have some colors downstairs that are Bernat stripes, and I think what I'm going to do to save my sanity is I think I'm just going to rip them apart and have the color, each color be in a cake or a ball on its own, because then it's easier to use those smaller colors. When it's in that cake form and you're going through it, it just, I don't know. I struggle with it because you're going to have a large portion of that stuffy or whatever be one color, but then the end of it is going to be another color. You know, and sometimes that happens when I make an octo, like a mini octo, because I have very little of a color left. Because that's the smallest thing I can make, or that's my smallest thing that I do make. But sometimes I run out of yarn. Like, I'm able to do the tentacles, but I just don't have quite enough yarn to close the underbelly. And so then I'll grab something else and use something else, because you don't actually see it unless you actually pick up the octo and look at the bottom. I'm looking for a smaller horse pattern than this one. I like this one. but I don't think I can make a bunch of them. I'd like to have a bunch of horses and cows for Cheyenne Frontier Days. I think that they'll sell well. I'm also making small, medium, and large tops. I'm using knit by, whoopsies. I'm using Passionate Kelsey. I'm using some of her patterns so that I have, you know, other stuff. You know, I want to have my plushies, but I also want to have other stuff. So when people stop by, I have hopefully something for most people. I know I'm not going to have something for everyone, but I would like to try and have something for most people. I'm really excited about being able to put my tables out and sell this summer. I don't know exactly how it's going to go, and you know, we'll see, but where we live is on basically one of the main streets, and so if you're going from the parade up to, or from the pancake breakfast up to the fairgrounds, you typically pass my house. Plus, if you're going out to Del Range or going to South Greeley, you tend to pass by where we live. And I think I'll make good sales, especially during Frontier Days, because you have so much foot traffic. We'll see how the rest of the summer goes. I'm planning on doing lives while I'm out there selling during the summer, so we'll see how that goes. I'm still going to use, I think, the StreamYard website so that I can stream to Twitch and to YouTube at the same time. But I'm thinking of adding another social media platform where you can go live, but I don't know if I still have not figured out if it works with StreamYard or not. I have no clue. I'm still trying to figure that out. If you haven't, like, share, subscribe, comment. That helps the algorithm figure out that I'm out here. If you have any questions, throw them into the chat or throw them onto the video afterwards, and I'm more than happy to answer them. I don't know about you, but I do actually kind of like the longer lives, especially like when I'm watching Passionate Kelsey or Crochet Vision or Knotting Hook Crochet, which I think is Robin. Maybe not. I've been watching quite a few lives. I'm not a big, like, hey, let's see what's in the yarn stash kind of person, or let's reorganize the yarn stash. That just doesn't interest me. But I do enjoy listening to people talk and show different things that maybe they're working on or that they've done. Like I said, I am for the product, not for the process. I like this kind of market bag pattern. It's really easy to work up because basically you're just doing chains and single crochets. I've seen other market bags, but honestly, I like this one the best. I remember Crochet Crowd had one on their website. Oh man, several years ago, and I worked that one up, and it was not a market bag. It was like literally this thing was 1.5 feet long, and when you opened it up, it was like a massive tote. It was huge. I followed the pattern, used the wrong yarn and the wrong hook. Instead, I mean, that's why it turned out the way it did. But at that time, I thought that that was cool, you know, bigger and better. I have since figured out that bigger and better is not always bigger and better. And anytime I meet someone, you know, out in the wild, that are like, oh, you know, I want to learn how to crochet, or, you know, I know how to crochet a little bit, I always tell them practice doesn't make perfect, but it does make better. And I really believe that the more that you are able to practice your art, the better you're going to get. The more that you grow with what you do, because you learn. Anytime you do something new, you learn. It may be difficult, it may be easy, but I find it stimulating to keep learning things. So, and you know, you can get free patterns like off of, I'm thinking pretty much every company that sells yarn. So Yarn Inspirations, Lion Brand, Premier, like even Joann's has something where you can get patterns. Ribbler, but I have never used that, and I don't know. I'm not sure that I want to, especially with Joann's, everything that's going on with Joann's. I'm not sure that that Ribbler is going to be there. I really like using, one of my apps is called Knit, K-N-I-T, and I really like that for like my knit patterns and whatnot, but when it comes to my crochet patterns, I've been keeping them in my Google Drive, and I just pop them open when I'm ready to do something, and keep them on the screen while I'm working, which works well for me. I have not been working from printed patterns a whole lot because I think it's a waste of paper. Although sometimes you can't get the pattern sized up large enough, zoomed in, large enough to actually really easily read the pattern. And in that case, I had to print because it was just too small for me to be able to read on my phone, which is usually how I'm looking at my patterns. I have a setup that holds my phone up so that I can see my phone, which makes it easier to work from my phone. Plus, it has a ring light that sometimes works, sometimes doesn't work. You know, I never know with this house. The house itself is well over 115 years. I think we're like getting close to like 120 years. It is an old house. And, you know, my family's had like updating done to the kitchens and to the bathrooms, to the electrical and plumbing, but it's still an old house. Mom found somebody to help her sell her all the dang antiques. So that's supposed to also be happening this summer. We'll see how that works out. My Aunt Sherry was going to come visit us this summer, but I think she and her daughter are actually going to go overseas, which I'm glad it's them and not me, to be honest. But I think they're going, I wanted to say that they were going to Europe, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I just know that they're going overseas for a trip. I think all of Aunt Sherry's grandkids are out of school now. I think they're like college age or above. And so I think that that's probably why it's a good time for Aunt Sherry and her daughter to go places. I hope they take a lot of pictures, but I don't want to go. It's like one of those things where it's like there's so much unrest. I just don't want to be caught somewhere where I can't come home. Because I think that would be the hardest part, is like when COVID hit and folks were overseas and they couldn't come home. That was rough for a lot of people. And I wouldn't want to have something, because it wouldn't necessarily have to be of, a medical nature. It could be that the president just decides that you can't fly in from that particular country. I don't know what I would do. I would be expecting Mom to help me figure that one out, because it would be like, how you get home when you can't even fly home, So I'm glad that it's them going and not me. But I do hope that they have a really good time. And I think they will. I miss Uncle Jerry, because Aunt Sherry was married to Uncle Jerry. And he passed away a couple years ago. And I don't know. He was all, like most of my grandma's family, they liked to tease. And Uncle Jerry liked to tease. When I was driving trucks, I got to see Uncle Jerry down in Mississippi. And Uncle Jerry, Aunt Sherry, and I went out to eat and just kind of hung out for a little bit, which was nice. Because it was like I finally was an adult. You work so hard to get to be an adult, and then once you're an adult, you realize that it's not quite as fun as it seems like it might be. Although Mom had to force me to learn how to drive when I was 18, because I did not want to learn how to drive. And then in the first couple of months, I had 2 accidents. The first one, I was at school, and I was leaving school, and the girl, I wasn't going very fast, and neither was the girl, but she backed into my car. I was going down the lane, and she just didn't mean to, but backed into me. And then we had just gotten that fixed. And I was dropping Mom off at the VA, because she worked at the VA. And one of the VA nurses, Mom was right there. And I'm honking and we're yelling, because Mom's like half out the door. I can't like back up. And this lady just backed right into us. She didn't clean off the back windshield, so she didn't know we were there. And like the police and other people, medical people from inside the VA had come out, because they had heard us honking and hollering, which sometimes that would happen if it was like an elderly couple and the spouse couldn't get the other spouse out, they would honk their horns and stuff at what was the emergency entrance. It's not the emergency entrance anymore, but that VA here in town has sure changed a lot. I kind of grew up around the VA because Mom worked there. And so, you know, the kids that I knew, if I didn't know them from school, I knew them from Mom's work. And it was, I don't know. It was odd going to school with, like, the doctor's kids. Like nurses and their children are a completely different breed. I had to have, you know, like a truly broken bone before Mom would like take me to the ER. So when I was a kid, I broke my arm in May. Or it was the end of April. One of those. And then in July, I fell and I broke my leg, ankle, foot, and toes. And that was all in 1 year. And Mom was not happy with me, to say the least. But she did take me to the emergency room both times that I fell and broke something. But nurses are a different breed, and you hear all kinds of things from nurses, and their humor tends to be kind of dark. And so being the kid of a nurse, like, you tend to have a pretty dark sense of humor too. And the way that you look at the world is different than other people. And I think it's because you know, or you learn that your parent cares for other people and works really hard, but the other side of it is that you hear about all the gory stuff, and you learn what it's like to be a nurse, to take care of people, to take care of things that maybe most people would think were like gross or awful, and you find humor in it. And so I would much rather hang out with the kid of a nurse than the kid of a doctor, because it seemed like the kids from the doctors didn't have the same humor. And of course, now that I'm older, I still hang out with nurses. I'm really excited. My mom is part of the Nurse Honor Guard in town. And she got nominated and confirmed to be the vice president. She's very excited about that. And she's very into this Nursing Honor Guard because they go out and they talk to families like of a nurse that's passed, and they ask, you know, can we show up for the funeral and, you know, participate in the service? And they have a couple of poems and different things that they read. And then they do the last call, which is kind of like a last watch for like a fallen police officer. But they use this bell, and they basically are telling the nurse that's passed that their duties are over and it's time for them to rest. But like Mom has thrown herself headlong into this. She's buying roses, and I think she bought a new Bible. I mean, like, she reorganized their kit for when they go do services, and kind of have it organized for, you know, if they're indoors or if they're outdoors. You know, and it's different if they're doing a service for a nurse versus like a doctor, because they will go to local doctors' funerals. And what's interesting is my mom met these ladies when she went to a nurse's funeral before my grandma died. So I think it was back in 22 when she met these nurses, but it might have been 21. And at first she wasn't real active with the group, but especially the last year, she's gotten really active with the group. She pretty much has gone to every service that they've had since she got real active. And she really enjoys like the planning and doing stuff with the other ladies. I think they have one gentleman that's joined them now, which I wish that they could get, you know, more people to join them, because it would be nice if they had a larger group. And they are growing. I think that's why Mom has become more interested, is they are growing. Mom knows several of the nurses that are in the Nurse Honor Guard from when she was working either at the VA or when she worked at Peak, which was a mental health facility here in town. But it's interesting because a lot of people in town worked like at the VA, and then they worked at the city hospital, well, county hospital, and then, you know, they would work like at different clinics. And so Mom knows a lot of the nurses in town. And she used to work with one of the nurses' mother. And I remember that nurse's mom because she used to work up on Seaward with my mom. And she was always so nice. She was pretty soft-spoken, but she was very, very nice. I got to count my rows, sorry. Okay, just a couple more rows left. There we go. This pattern is so easy, and it's so easy to count your rows. I think it's a good beginner pattern for someone that's new to crochet. I think that this would be a really good bag pattern for them. I also think learning how to do a corner to corner would be really good for someone who's just starting out. And I say that over like granny squares or washcloths is because you learn more stitches with a corner to corner. With the traditional corner to corner, you're learning chains, you're learning double crochets, you're learning slip stitches and single crochets. That may not be all the stitches that we use in crochet, but that's a good chunk of them. And you, in the course of doing the corner to corner, you repeat them over and over and over again. And I think that it gives you a chance to learn your tension and learn how to hold the yarn and how to hold the hook so it's comfortable for yourself. I know some people are really into the, I shouldn't say into, I know a lot, that there's quite a few people that will hold their hook like it's a pen. I hold mine more like it's a knife. Because that's how I learned, and that is what is comfortable for me. I learned how to crochet when I was 5 years old from my great-grandmother, who was a retired teacher, and she was not the nicest person out there. She liked to pinch, but she taught me how to crochet. She would always give me containers of buttons. I don't know where she got all those darn buttons, but like she would give me, sometimes it'd be like the traditional like cookie container, and then other times there'd be like little bags or other little boxes and stuff of buttons that she would just give me. I think because as a kid I liked looking through them. I liked the different colors and the textures. Um, she used to live in my grandma and grandpa's old house, the one that they had before they moved here. Um, Papa moved her down from Casper after his dad died, and grandma was by herself, and she just needed. Wait a minute, no, they moved down before Grandpa John died. Um, but I think Grandpa John was pretty sick at that time, and I'm not sure that he was even in the house. He had schizophrenia and really struggled with that his whole life. My great grandfather did, and my great grandma Lydia would lock him when he was having problems, lock him in the bedroom. Luckily, I didn't have to see that. I mean, like I heard the stories growing up, but I didn't have to see that stuff um, because Grandpa John died like right after, a couple months after I was born. And then right after that, my grandpa had open heart surgery, and he was a bus driver and for Greyhound buses, so he was off for quite a while, healing up from that. And Mom was working nights. Grandma worked at the administration building for the school district. So Papa, let me sleep on his chest, and Mom made sure that I was clean, I was fed, and I was dry, and she'd hand me off to him. And that's pretty much how it was until he retired. Even when he went back to work, by then I think Mom was working days and he was working nights. So he'd come home and take a shower. And by the time he was done with his shower, I was clean, I was fed, I was clothed, and I was handed off to him. When the summer before I turned 7 was when I was getting ready to go to kindergarten, and they had a buyout through Greyhound. And so my grandfather took early retirement, and he started being my driver, which he was my driver before then anyways. But he drove me, he would take me to school, and he'd pick me up every day. And when I was really young, I think I was in first or second grade, he was late one day. And I got worried, and so I started walking home, and I came real close to getting home. But I did not cross Central, which is a good thing that I didn't cross Central, because there's no crosswalks until you get down to Pershing. And so from the school, that's a long distance. And I got that far and I didn't know where to go. So I was on the corner of Central when Papa found me. Thank goodness he found me. But I was so upset because he was late. He probably was like maybe 4 minutes late, and I panicked and left, which is the kind of kid I was when I grew up. Man, I was so anxious, and I still am anxious, but not as bad as I used to be. And like if Mom was a minute late from work, it was a travesty. She'd been in a car wreck or someone hurt her. Like I always catastrophized as a kid. And that was something that I had to learn to stop doing as an adult. And sometimes those old tapes will still play in my head, but it's not as bad as it used to be. But man, it would always upset me when Mom was late or Papa was late. I didn't care if Grandma was late, but if one of the other two was late, man, the world was ending in my eyes. Papa was definitely like my favorite person growing up. He was always calm and quiet, and he had narcolepsy, so he slept a lot. but that didn't bother me because when I was young, I slept a lot too. Um, it was really hard when I was in high school and he passed away. He'd been fighting cancer for 2 years and he passed. And the guy next door to us had been fighting cancer for about the same length of time. He was diagnosed about 6 months after Papa, and he died about 6 months after Papa. And then we had the lady across the street who'd been dealing with cancer for years. She passed away like the month after that, and it was like it was how do I say this? It was like our neighborhood changed really fast because of those deaths, and I didn't deal real well with that because at that time we lived across the street. Mom and I did, and it was really hard to see so many people that I had grown up with and that had just been here, had always been here, to see them gone. I really struggled with that. And definitely, like, Mom and I are closer because of it and because of other stuff that's gone on. But there for a while, we weren't as close because Mom was always trying to placate Grandma. Because Grandma was definitely the loudest voice in the house, and she was definitely the matriarch, and you jumped when she said. You didn't even ask how high, you just jumped. And there were times when, because of all of that, I felt like I was ignored. And Mom didn't mean to make me feel like that. And, really, she's not responsible for my emotions. I am. But it was a tough time for me. And then 2 years later, I was getting ready to graduate high school, and I had just started talking with my father, my biological father, and we had only been talking a couple of months. And graduation is coming up, and it's a month before graduation, and prom was coming, and I had my dress, and I was going to prom. And then my dad passed away. And so the weekend of prom, I spent down in New Mexico because they had the funeral. And then, like, I was meeting family that I had never met before. And so Mom and I, we were only going to be down there like 2 days. But then we decided to stay longer so that I could have more time with the other family members. And, that's a whole nother story in and of itself. Because there was a lot of shady business going on down there. I'm so glad that Mom and I, like, right after I was born, Mom and I moved back to Wyoming. And I think that was one of the best decisions that my mother ever made for me. I know that she felt like if she was down in New Mexico, my dad's family would spend more time with me. But that's not how that family works. And, now most of that family has passed. So, but I always, like, that whole weekend was just I think we ended up staying almost a week, but it was weird. The my dad's current wife at that time, when he passed, was like keeping stuff from the rest of the family. And so I went to her house, and she didn't know the difference between, like, copies and originals. And so Mom and I took the original of documents because she thought that my dad would want me to have them, which I doubt, because they were just like his military papers and stuff. And but I got copies of it, and she got copies. I gave her copies back instead of the originals, and she was so whacked out of her mind on drugs, she didn't know the difference. And I took the originals and gave them to my dad's family, because my dad's dad really wanted to get his medals back. I think that my dad probably pawned them for booze, but that's a whole nother story. So yeah, it's been interesting. That whole family is weird. And of course, most of them have passed now. Because Mom and I were never drinkers, and Grandma and Papa were never drinkers up here. And so I really wasn't around like alcohol and drugs and stuff. But that side of the family, they were huge, and they would drink alcohol all the time, and they would take prescription drugs that weren't written for them, and they would take street drugs, and there was a lot of stuff going on down there. So I'm very glad that Mom and I lived in Wyoming while I was growing up, because I really wasn't exposed to that stuff. Not that that stuff didn't exist here, because it did exist, you know, in Wyoming. It's just I wasn't exposed to it, which meant that I think I had a pretty great childhood, Grandma notwithstanding. I went one too far, but it's easy enough to rip back. Like I said earlier, these bags normally take me about 3 hours to complete. And a large portion of that is, well, I shouldn't say a large portion, but, well, yeah, I'd say a pretty big portion of that 3 hours is spent doing like the handles that go all the way around. Because you wouldn't think doing single crochets that it would take that long, but that part seems to, for me at least, it seems like it takes the longest. So Mom's home. The dogs have been very quiet. They've been very good. This pattern is very easy, and it didn't take me much to memorize, and most of it doesn't feel like it's taking that long, because you can see the progress that you're making. It's just doing those handles round and round and round. Those are the ones that just seem to take forever. And I know that they don't actually take forever. They just seem like they take a long time. Okay, I got to do one more count. Good deal. Just have to make sure that I have the same amount of single crochets on this end as I do on the other end. That way they match up. Well, I've been yabbering for almost 2 hours, but if y'all are willing to stay on, I'm going to keep going for a while. I might actually be able to complete this bag on camera. We'll see. I like watching passionate Chelsea, especially when she does the lives when she's crocheting. Because she just picks a project and she just goes for it. Same thing with, Crochet Vision. She just picks a pattern and goes for it. But she creates so much in such a short amount of time. Whether, you're talking plushies or you're talking like ear warmers, she's got it down to a science. And I know that she's been doing it for several years, and this, crochet is her full-time job, just like it's Kelsey's full-time job. But Sarah's just got a different energy about her. And I don't know if it's, because she's from New York and maybe that's just kind of how the energy is there, or if it's just her. But she definitely has this energy of, I'm just going to plow through it. And I'm sure that she, gets burnt out and stuff. But I just really like watching them. I've also been watching the Celestial Homebody. And I think it's kind of cool that her business name plays off her daughter's name. Her daughter's name is, well, I don't know if the business came first or the daughter's name came first. I have a feeling probably the business name, because that's, Celestial Homebody. But her daughter's name is Celeste, which I think is just a beautiful name. And I can't remember what her husband does, but I do know that her husband works nights. But it seems like the two of them have a pretty good, humorous relationship with each other. Not that it's any of my business. Like, that's what it looks like on camera. But you never know what people's lives are like for real, because the camera turns off and you don't, there's a lot of stuff that you don't see. And I think that that's the hard part for people that are invested into YouTube channels is, the viewers, they sometimes forget that you don't see everything. You only see what that content creator allows you to see. And so there's a lot of time, if their video is 30 minutes long and maybe it took them 3 hours to get the video clips, well, you're seeing 3 hours condensed down into, 10 minutes? And then you don't see anything else. You don't see the rest of the day. And I think sometimes it's hard to remember that there's more that goes on than what you see in the videos or in the clips. And I think sometimes we as humans forget to give grace to each other and peace to each other and just recognize that we're all imperfect and that that's perfectly fine. That's how we're supposed to be. So now we start the handles. And this is a lot of chains. All righty. Okay. Attach this in. And down the sides we go. That's probably why it seems like this takes forever, is because you're not just doing the handles, you're also doing the sides at the same time. If you haven't already, hit the like, share, follow, comment. Let me know that you're here. Well, really let the algorithm know that we're here. That's really what it is. And maybe my hair will be almost, well, it'll probably be almost dry by the time I'm done with this bag. The dogs are staring at Mom because it's their dinner time. And they think that they have to be fed right on time, especially Humphreys. He's like me. We could stand to lose a few pounds, and yet, I don't know. He's a good boy. He takes care of us. He watches over us. We have him on a special diet to kind of try and help him lose weight. And he hasn't gained weight on it, which is good, but he hasn't really lost a whole lot. It'd be nice if he could lose about 5 pounds, which is a lot for a little dog. Back to the chains. Okay. Okay. Down the next side. The sides are pretty easy because all you're doing is doing a single crochet around the chains. And of course the chains are what allow it to open up so big. Kelsey has, on her channel, Passionate Kelsey, she has shown how much you can put into one of these market bags. They really do stretch really well. And because they're cotton, they don't end up hanging down on the floor. Like if you made these out of just regular Red Heart acrylic, you'd put something in them and they would sink to the floor and they would not bounce back. Like cotton has good structure, and so it's not going to overstretch like that. But the other side of the coin is that it works, it does have some stretch to it, but what stretch it does have is very limited, and it pops back into its original shape. You got to be careful so you don't shrink your cotton when you're washing it. But other than that, to me, cotton is one of my favorite things to work with. And of course, here comes the hard part, trying to single crochet in the back loops of the chain. Like that's, I don't know why that seems to be such a difficult thing for me. But I do it that way so that the handle has that the inside and the outside of the handle will have nice edges. It really is worth it to take the time to do that. There was this thing that popped up on my Facebook feed of someone that I might know. And a long time ago, I knew the family. I used to nanny for the family, and I took care of the son. And that son that I think of as a little 3-year-old, no, he was almost 4 the last time I saw him, now is like a senior in college. It's like, ooh, you know, good for him. I think he's still playing football, or at least that's what it looks like. So, you know, good for him. He really seems to be enjoying college life. His dad is a local lawyer here in town. And, you know, I really hadn't seen anything about the family for a long time. And then that popped up. It wasn't even a memory. It was actually suggesting that, you know, I might want to be friends with the family. And it was like, nah. It's, you know, it's been too long since I've been around that family, since I've known that family. They probably wouldn't even remember me, because that was quite a while ago. It's just hard to think of, you know, all the kids that I used to babysit or nanny for are, you know, in their 20s. And it's like, geez, I don't really feel, or I don't really think that I'm old until I get reminded of things like that. And then it's like, oh, yeah, I'm the old one. But it's always, you know, nice to see that people that you know or that you used to know, see them thriving. You don't ever want to see anybody struggling. You want the best, or at least I do. I want the best for people because life is hard enough out there. We don't need to struggle against each other or, you know, carry ill will towards each other. I think since I've kind of adopted that mindset, it has helped me, so I have fewer regrets, and I can kind of reframe stuff that has happened in my life that I did or that other people did. I'm able to kind of reframe that and, you know, see it in a different light and let it go. Because I don't need to be carrying all that around. No one does. So, well, I've been going for 2 hours and 10 minutes. And it looks like we're down to just one person. So I think what I'm going to do is say goodbye. Remember that you're wanted, you're needed, and you're loved. Be kind to everyone, and I will see you with some kind of video on Wednesday.